A little after 11 a.m. on the last Sunday of June 2026 here in beautiful Vlorë, Albania, in the middle of the heat wave, in the middle of the heat dome, in what they call an omega occurrence, because the hot air gets trapped like the letter omega in the Greek alphabet. Many people here in Europe have been sweltering, suffering. There have been deaths. And climate change is just going to make things worse. And it's made this worse. And thinking about that, thinking about the future, thinking about the next 25, 30 years, what should we expect in the world? Hey guys, my name is Scott Layton. I'm an expat from the United States, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Retired at 55, I'm currently 56. And I've been in Albania now for 6 months. I am traveling the world, one city at a time, 1 month at a time. And once I leave Albania, I'll probably end up going to the rest of the Balkans, and once it becomes wintertime in Southeast Asia, I'll head to Australia. But this video is going to talk about two concepts on not predictions per se of what's going to happen in the next 25 or 30 years, but just looking at trends, looking at analysis, looking at patterns. I'm what one would call polymath, a Renaissance spirit, a systems thinker, and I think there are things that we're just not prepared for as humans, either individually or collectively. The fact that there have been so many deaths in Europe this past month is a clear indication that most of culture, most of society hasn't caught up to the realities of the day. So, before I get into the various topics, which include the environment with climate change and climate change mitigation or lack thereof, AI, the collapse of democracy in many countries, wealth inequality, to name a few, I wanted to go and give you an overview, and that's what this video is for. Two topics that are going to come up over and over again in this series. Each topic will have its own episode. All has to do with two things that everyone needs to be familiar with. The first is what they call tipping points. The idea that one event in and of itself isn't enough necessarily to cause more damage or to cause another event, big consequences in other words. But some events are. For example, the Arctic melting, the AMOC current, if that ends up collapsing, the corals all dying. Those are what scientists call tipping points. If you look at it from a perspective outside of climate change science, for example, things like Rome no longer becoming a republic, overextension of the Roman Empire, those earthquakes. They also had a big disease and famine period in their history. Those are what we call tipping points. So a lot of what is happening right now is going to be exacerbated by future tipping points like the AMOC, like the Arctic melting. So keep that in mind, but I'm going to go and give you examples for each of the topics on tipping points. The other is what we call polycrisis. The idea that one event isn't separate, but it's all related. And let me just give you an example of that in brief. Climate change is being worsened. The heat issues that Europe is facing right now, the wildfires in America, the sweltering heat, the loss of drinking water, all of those issues are crises in and of themselves. But if you look at it, it's all related to things like global inequality, things like the growing concentration of wealth, things like democracy not holding up to corporate power and lobbying, and corrupt politicians. Here in Vlorë, the destruction of wetlands by Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump have been protested heavily for the past month, what they call the Flamingo Revolution. Each of these events in and of themselves are related. But then you look at things like the growth of AI, often unregulated growth. Each query to an AI can consume as much as a 500 milliliter bottle of water. And that's not including the damage to the environment, deforestation, growth of these humongous data centers taking up tons of land, the pollution. And again, this is being driven by the people at the top, the wealthiest, who own these corporations and want to make even more data centers. So you can start seeing patterns if you look at them. I've done videos before on tipping points, I've done videos before on connecting the dots and Polycrisis, but all of these issues are intertwined. You can't separate one thread without pulling the entire fabric apart. And that's what I'm going to try to do on these videos. Because if you look at everything and realize that it's all related, the solutions actually become more clear. We need more government regulation. We need more democratization. We need people on the streets, like here in Albania, protesting, strikes. We need to vote. We need to vote people in power who actually support the environment and climate change mitigation and democratization and limiting the wealth inequality, making the world sustainable for all of us. And the solutions themselves are all related. We need more science, we need more data. We as individuals need to go and listen to the news. We have to talk to our friends and our neighbors and tell the politicians what we think about all of this. The social division, the polarity, the discontinuity we see in many cultures today is also driven by things like social media, driven by algorithms, driven by people who don't want us to talk to each other. And again, it's all related back to the wealth inequality, the people who own these businesses in the first place. As Benjamin Franklin said, we either hang together or we hang separately. And the more they can divide, the more they can conquer. That's the world we live in today, guys. I think we all are upset with what's happening. But when we start looking at the solutions and working together, I think we'll all find it more easier to deal with this situation that we're currently in. So on my next video, I'm going to talk about climate change in particular, since it's such a present topic here amongst Europeans and the heat wave and the deaths. And then the next video after that will be on AI. And then I'll finally get to wealth inequality as my last video. Please share this if you like it. Discuss, comment, and let people know what you think. And talk, like I said. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your politicians, and tell them what kind of world you want to live in the next 25 to 30 years. Take care, guys. Have a blessed day.